when you use something that it has great design, that's designed very well, has good experience, you don't notice that it has great user experience, right? Something that I'm trying to help people understand is like at these hackathons and stuff, they tend to be very coding heavy. We need all types of people to be able to, for Bitcoin to take over, right? You know, we need people for marketing, design. Let's get more people in the space. We don't need to reallocate anything, right? We just need more people. The idea of having a privacy, like a wallet that's specifically doing privacy stuff and one that doesn't, I don't like that, right? Like all wallets should be privacy wallets, or like take that into consideration. You don't want to end up in a situation where you get your salary and then you go out to a club or something in the middle of the night, you pay the taxi, and now the taxi drops you home, and they see that you have like this huge UTXO that you control, right?
John's Beharry is a Bitcoin designer building a platform for Lightning builders called Bolt.Fun. In our discussion, we explored the importance of design in the Bitcoin industry. We discussed the state of builders in the Bitcoin and Lightning ecosystem today. And we even talked about Legends of Lightning, the tournament being hosted by Bolt.Fun to accelerate Bitcoin adoption globally. I've also added Johns to today's show splits, so if you enjoy this episode and if you learn something new, the best way to let me know is by sending in sats over the Lightning Network. You can use any podcasting 2.0 app, but my favorite to use is Fountain. Quick shout out, today's show is sponsored by Voltage. Voltage is the industry standard and next generation provider of Lightning Network infrastructure. Today's show is also sponsored by Stackwork. Stackwork is a Lightning-powered transcription tool that takes the best of AIs and humans to generate better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. We'll have more from Voltage and Stackwork later in the show. Johns, welcome to the show today. I'm thrilled to discuss all that you're doing in the Bitcoin design community and the work you're doing at Bolt.Fun. But before we get into it, let's rewind and give listeners a bit of perspective on how you got into Bitcoin and how you discovered the Lightning Network.
Yeah, sure. Getting into Bitcoin, that's a story of pain, and especially in the payments realm. So I'm from an island in the Caribbean called Saint Lucia, and there's 200,000 people there, right? So we don't really get a lot of access to some of these cool fintech tools, you know, whether it's Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, and stuff like that. We did have PayPal, but they do these weird things at the time where you would be able to, like, you would get paid from a client or something, because I was running a web design agency, and they would hold the money for like 21 days, right? And then you could only transfer like 500 at a time. That doesn't exist anymore. You can't do that that even. So it's just like you could just use it to spend, not to receive. And there's one guy, Gabriel Abed. He said it in a pretty interesting way. He's like, we could build, you know, international class products in the Caribbean, like SaaS products or whatever, but we can't get paid for them internationally. And yeah, so there's a lot of pain in the payment realm. And I think it was around 2013 when I, finally decided, like, hey, you know, this is something that could probably solve these problems. A bank that never goes offline, that you could send funds on the weekends and stuff like that. We could receive funds from clients. So I started to like redesign people's websites, just like, randomly, unsolicited. But I didn't really get a lot of bites, not a lot of interest. I wasn't connected up in the, like, in the industry, and it was very small back then as well. So it took a few years. I kind of like got distracted with other things, my agency, and I think, around 2017 or so, there was a lot of hype building back up again, right? So. Um, so I'm like, okay, let's see what's going on. And at this point, there's like a whole bunch of like these token projects and this and that. The space was like really different from what I remembered it, right? So I took some time to try to figure out like, okay, what's happening right now, what's going on, and spent like a year or so going to conferences, researching and stuff like that. And turns out that like pretty much all those token projects or whatever, it's all BS, and they're trying to just like get some bag. I created this thing called like the Dogecoin test. So like I remember South by Southwest. I was there 2017 or 18. I can't remember. Yeah, again trying to like learn like what's like how the space is developed. And I'm like, okay, well, like Dogecoin at the time, like before Elon Musk, it was like this cool community kind of thing, like you know, behind it. Now it's like, yeah, people speculating a little too hard. But
Mm,
uh, people are like, oh yeah, I want to do this token, but I'm like, why? Why do you need it? It's like, oh, for utility of that. Why don't you use Dogecoin, right? And then because at the time it was like fast and cheap, right? And
right.
and uh, they're like, well, you know what? Well, we really want to like get paid, essentially. We went like we want to raise money, and this is how we're kind of doing it. And all the utility stuff that they were like faffing on about, it's like just nonsense, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I got into like, okay, I'm like, okay, this is like bullshit. Now, like, I was looking at problems with like scalability, and stuff. I went really deep into that topic, and I'm realizing like, okay, blockchains don't scale. Found out about the Lightning Network, and I'm like, all right, Bitcoin, like this is where it's at, and yeah, a couple years ago, I reached out to Steve Lee. They were looking for some. He posted something about some redesign of Bitcoin Core GUI or like what kind of UX improvements, and I sent him some stuff. I had a meeting with him. They were trying to recruit for like Square Crypto, it was called at the time, Spiral, a designer. So I did an interview with him, and he said that they had spoken to about like 50 or so designers, right? And yeah, so what they were trying to do is to improve the user experience of Bitcoin, get some more designers into the space, because for mass adoption, we need good UX, right? People need to be able to use these things. Anyway, so he's like, okay, well, interviewed a bunch of like really cool people. It seems that one designer cannot solve all the problems of Bitcoin, open source, and the UX things relating to that. So he's like, let's start a community. So I was one of the first set of people in there, and we're like, okay, the community needs a project, and then that goes into the Bitcoin design guide. I got a grant to do research on payments and privacy, and specifically, I was trying to figure out how to make a consistent UX between on and off chain, but not compromise on like the principles of what or the philosophies of what Bitcoin is, and kind of like being a bit more true to those principles while giving a more familiar interface, right, to
Mm,
folks. So it's like you don't have to abstract everything away from people, but introduce like the unique concepts of Bitcoin in a kind of familiar way to them. So yeah.
mm. That's really interesting. So I want to step back to your first introduction to Bitcoin. When you mentioned the pain that you had seen in payments in St. Lucia, is this so? When you first learned about Bitcoin, you were thinking of it already in the sense of a payments network. Is that right?
Unfortunately, yes. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't get the whole store of value thing, because like for me, I didn't have much value to store, but
Right.
I needed to be able to receive receive money. Um, so yeah, yeah. So like, I remember like buying one Bitcoin. I had to like Western Union one guy from local Bitcoins. I'm like really nervous, and
Yeah.
yeah, I was just like spending it on domain, renewing my $9 domain name.
Oh, interesting. That's really fascinating. So, and then you transition to working on design work, and in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and you meet up with Steve Lee, and you start discussing about how to improve design in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Was this design work also targeted towards the medium of exchange use case, the payments, or was it also about the store of value when you were first having these discussions?
There's a lot of different angles that the Bitcoin design community and stuff has to tackle, right? One side is like the user experience around like handling private keys, right? So that you could say is like very attached to the store of value use case, right? But like I don't think it's just one track. There's like all these different components that need attention, whether it's the backing up of keys, the memorization of keys. There's a very interesting project by this guy called Thor, where he was using like sound and dance and stuff like that to help people in different cultures like utilize memorize their private keys and stuff, like alternative ways than like 12 words and stuff. So yeah, it's like it's really multifaceted that we have to look at this. And the great thing about the Bitcoin design community is like now there's finally like a collection of people who care about this topic of improved user experience. They have a place to gather, they have a place to discuss, and whatever aspect, whether it's payments, whether it's privacy, whether it's the what subscriptions, whatever else it is, they can tackle their own things, and we're all kind of like contributing to the larger goal of increasing mass adoption through better UX. Yeah, so I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say I wouldn't say it was like a specific area per se.
Right. Now, when you think about design across the board, I haven't had many designers on this podcast yet, but I really want to dive into the importance of design. Can you speak to that to people who are skeptical of the importance of design? I think there tends to be sometimes especially in tech, there's people are very interested in programmers and engineers, and that they look at these hard and difficult tasks and they say we need more of them, and they kind of push to the side some of the design, some of the refinements, some of the marketing, some of the they may call them like softer disciplines or whatever, different aspects that incorporate a product or an app but don't necessarily involve the programming and the engineering that some of the front end and back end development does. How do you make the case for design? Can you reach out to those people on the show and say, here's why design is important?
I think when you use something that it has great design, that's designed very well, has good experience, you don't notice that it has great user experience, right? So I think one example of like why it's important, or the impact of design. There was I don't know if it was this year or last year. The past 2 years have just been like really condensed now, right? But what's that? Robinhood. Yeah, they had a little design problem. I heard about some time ago, where some young kid was trading, and because of the way some balance was shown, they were using some leverage trading stuff. Because of how the balance was shown, they thought that they had to pay back like $500,000 or something, that they lost, and that person ended up, taking their life, and
Mm.
that's super unfortunate. And that is an area that, like, this is a easy example of like the kind of especially when you're dealing with money, right? Um, that's a great example of like the responsibility that we have to our users and stuff,
Yeah.
in educating and making things be very clear for them. Yeah, and I think like I saw that and I'm like, wow, as a designer in the field now, this is the from bad work, from not paying attention to some of these details. This is like a reality of what can happen. So I know it's a bit solemn example, but I think it it shows it off quite well, the importance of design.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So this user didn't even have to pay this $500,000,
Yeah,
but it just showed as a flaw in the app.
yeah, or
Oh wow.
their perception of it or whatever, but
Right. They just
still,
didn't understand the rules or
exactly,
whatever.
exactly,
Huh.
exactly.
So so let's go into the Bitcoin design guide, right? Because this is
Mm.
one of the big projects that this design community has been working on. It's one of the ones that I think a lot of people on Twitter are familiar with. It's gotten quite a bit of attention. Can you talk to me about what it is and what it set out to accomplish, specifically the design guide?
Yeah. Well, okay. So in the space back in 2020, when the community kicked off, um, again, there wasn't like a gathering place for designers, so everyone's kind of like working in their own silos, right? And what happens when people work in silos and don't share information, and right?
You
A
repeat
bunch
it.
of exactly, exactly. So what we're like trying to do is say like, hey, we're just looking at the patterns that are already existing. We're trying to make some improvements on them as well. As a community, there's no one person that's doing all this. It's a community effort, and it's always evolving, right? So yeah, so the guide is basically a collection of some of these patterns, but then you could show off these patterns and whatnot, but it's also important to understand some of the underlying things. And I got to pull you up on this. You said like softer skills, and design being softer skills. No, it can be quite technical. You
Yeah.
know, um, uh, yeah, it can be quite technical. So, and um, I think one of the things that I try to push for within the Bitcoin design community is for designers to kind of like understand some of these underlying components that make up, a wallet or whatever user experience, so that they can then create new patterns themselves, right? And because it's a it's a small group of core contributors, but we need to like get more and more people on contributing to the guide, coming up with patterns. We need to get more people in general coming into the space, right? So the guide also helps with that. So you could be a designer already looking for a pattern in the Bitcoin space, or you could be one who is like trying to get started into the space, and the guide kind of like facilitates both of those routes.
Right. And then so for companies also in the space, is this something that they're going to be referencing as well and saying, here's how our app should be built because here's this open source collection of design ideas and principles that the rest of the community has kind of adopted? You think that it's going to cause other companies in the space to modify their designs in return?
Well, I hope so, and I hope it's a continuous feedback loop, right? Because it needs to Bitcoin's ever evolving, right? We need
Mm-hmm.
those companies to then feed back into the guide to help improve it and to share the knowledge and stuff. Now we have this whole tarot thing that's going to be interesting for design explorations as well. But yeah, there are several projects that are starting new, or I can't name them off the top of my head, but yeah, there are projects which are existing as well that the designers in those companies, they for sure they're part of the community and they reference the designs and stuff like that. One thing I'm like really I've been on a campaign for is contact based UI, but it ties into like some UTXO coin selection kind of things as well, and then it's able to kind of like help you get more like analytics on like your local wallet about like your spending behaviors and stuff. So then you could say like, hey, let's open a channel with this person because I interact with them quite often. You know.
So
Um,
contact based, how would that work?
so there's like it's become kind of like a meme because I've been talking about it for so long, but within the Bitcoin design community. But yeah, it's a contact is basically a label, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's it. And you're just reusing the label, but you present it in a way that's familiar with someone, right? To someone, which is a contact, right?
Mm.
So like by doing it that way, then you get to then you get like all these like added benefits of like, okay, these are the coins that I received from someone. There's no privacy implications if I send it back to them. I'm not
I see.
losing. I might be consolidating some stuff if I send it back, but I'm also not like um, revealing anything new to them. But then you say like you can start giving the user kind of like prompts of saying like, hey, you don't have enough UTXOs that this person knows about. So whose privacy do you want to kind of like reveal? Like which out of which group, out of which person, which entity that you've transacted with, do you want to um, use the UTXOs for? And now there's going to become a link, right? So
Right.
again, that's just an example of like still staying true to the principles of Bitcoin and like how it works and stuff like that. Not abstracting it completely and doing automatic coin selection where nobody has control of their privacy. Privacy
Hmm.
is choice, right? So if you take away that choice from someone, then you're like you have none, right?
Right. Now, when you're thinking about design improvements and different ways for interacting with payments, we have two different sets of constraints in Bitcoin. Right now, we have Bitcoin and we have Lightning, and they have different mechanisms for sending payments and different there's just a different flow that the user has to go through. What is your when you focus your effort on better design? Is it mostly designed for Lightning invoices? Is it Bitcoin payments? What does that mix look like today?
What are the differences that you see with sorry for bringing it back to you, but what are the differences you see with the whether it's payment flows between Lightning and on-chain?
Well, I think the first one is just that in order to get on Lightning, you can't use in some wallets you can't send a Bitcoin based chain transaction, right? Like if you're trying to send a tip to this podcast, if you're trying to do value for value and you have Bitcoin on chain, you're gonna have a poor experience trying to do that.
Okay, but like there's applications like Moon, for example, or others which implement like submarine swaps and stuff,
Right. There
right?
are a few, and like things like Wallet of Satoshi, you can deposit on chain and have it sent out over Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have the idea of Lightning invoices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just and channels where like you have to have the inbound capacity. Like there's
Inbound
that's
capacity.
just like a different uh, thing that people have to consider when like a merchant on chain does not have that same consideration that a merchant on Lightning does.
Okay, I see the angle. I think on a higher level, the payment flows are pretty much the same though.
Mm.
I there's invoices and addresses, and I typically call them like uh, there's another project that part of that research was trying to come up with like a pattern language for Bitcoin, and one of them it's this reference of a architecture book like
I've heard of it.
a pattern language, and I'm
Yeah.
like so I was kind of like starting to come up with like some words and stuff that like a normal person could identify. So instead of invoices and addresses, like I call them like payment requests, right? Um, right? And ultimately, they have the same function, which is like you use them once, right? You generate it, and it has the payment destination. And sometimes it can have like the amount or other metadata encapsulated in it. BIP21, right?
Mm.
Same thing. Yeah. So, but you're right. On the level of, more granular interaction in terms of like booting up, um, yeah, bootstrapping. Yeah, there are some differences there. I think, yeah, liquidity. There's a lot of efforts being put into like the liquidity management side of things. Again, that's a part of UX that we just need to like um, try to try to focus on, right? And there are some people who are doing it within the community, but we need more and more people to to help push those kind of like design research and stuff forward. There's um there's a project, I think LNDG. I can't remember. I came across it recently, that they're trying to create like an interface for this channel management stuff. Um, but I think that, yes, there are gaps in which um, these differences haven't yet been bridged as yet. But I think it's better to look at them or try to look at them as the same thing, on chain and Lightning, right?
Mm,
Instead of like two separate things, right?
got it.
Like wallets like Moon. I use it quite often, and it has a pretty nice UX. It's a very solid kind of like application. Breeze as well. Besides the syncing part with Breeze, which is also kind of interesting because that's like a full node going on your
Yeah,
device, right? Which I think is like freaking amazing. But like something like Moon, it says like, hey, there's Lightning and Bitcoin there. There's an initiative within the design community to have like this unified QR codes. They're a bit more dense, right?
yeah,
But that's one of those things in which we can kind of like bridge the two together, because explaining to someone Lightning and on chain and stuff like that, it is kind of difficult, right? It's like, is Lightning Bitcoin? Like, what's going on there? That kind of thing.
yeah.
So another way, like I like to talk about it is, um, I say, instead of saying Lightning Network, which is like a very technical thing, I tend to say, um, was it uh, Lightning Fast Bitcoin payments or Bitcoin Lightning payments or something like this, right?
Okay.
It's more like the use case instead. So it's like it's the fast way to transact Bitcoin instead of talking about the technology part. But yeah, ultimately, I think we need to kind of like try to bridge those things together and look at it as a whole, as an experience. Because until like on chain gets priced out and stuff, or whatever, like transacting as much on chain, we're going to like people are going to be interfacing on chain, right, to create channels, whatever, whether it's having a background or whatever. So I think we just need to, yeah, spend some time to figure out how we can kind of like make sure that it's a unified experience.
Right. And yeah, we're still in that kind of awkward stage where Lightning payments and Bitcoin payments for some users, they almost don't, it doesn't matter. Like they can use, it's okay if they wait 10 minutes. It's okay if it's $1 of fees. In this stage, it seems to be a bit of a harder sell right now to say, here's why you need Lightning to use for this set of payments. But I think over time, yeah, eventually, you price out on chain, or you just recognize the speed is important for all these different apps that you want to use, and Lightning becomes the tool that people use to make payments. But I mean, there's still I get DMs all the time on Twitter that are like, I heard about Lightning. I'm enjoying your stuff. How do I buy Lightning? Like, what's the token? And it's
Yeah,
like there's just still a bit of a gap there in framing those two, topics, Bitcoin and Lightning. And people just intuitively think these are two things. They each have a token. What's the Lightning token? I want to buy it, right?
exactly.
And so, this leads into the unified QR code idea that you brought up. I think I saw this at Bitcoin 2022 with I think it was Cash App presenting that they were planning to integrate that. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really BIP 21.
Yeah.
Like it's literally things that have been existing, forever. Um,
How long ago was that introduced?
Bolt 12. Sorry, Bolt 11. And like so, BIP 21. You can add any other parameters to it, right? And then in Bolt 11, it says like, hey, you can also add this Lightning parameter equal invoice, right?
Mm,
In BIP 21, right? So you could use Lightning colon and then the invoice, right, for the URI, or you can
mhm,
use BIP 21 Bitcoin colon. I prefer using Bitcoin colon, right?
mm,
But because like when you click on something, then it opens up an app. It should be the Bitcoin app, and it's just in terms of like naming. Having this separation is so difficult to explain Lightning. Even as good as I think Moon is, when you get people to download it and then they're looking at it, they're like, so I want to receive, but there's Bitcoin and Lightning. What is
Yeah.
this? And then you have to go through a whole thing. Um, Ideally, you're spending the time instead talking about Bitcoin, right? And the
Right.
value of it and what you can do. And then, when these interfaces start to become a little bit more intelligent and stuff, like, for example, through the contacts thing that I'm explaining, then you can say, like, hey, this is how you upgrade to this. This is, and like features, like the wallet starts becoming a bit more dynamic and informative and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you get your first payment on chain, but then like, hey, this like, do you want to be able to have cheaper transactions for this? And then they're learning as part of the usage of it, right?
Hmm. Okay, I got one more design question for you, and then I want to get into Bolt.Fun and the
Sure.
Legends of Lightning tournament. If you could get, the builders of Bitcoin apps and the Bitcoin ecosystem in one room and have a discussion about what to prioritize and what everyone needs to come together to kind of like work together on and improve. What are some of those high priority items that you think the design community should you know, really be working on today?
That's a really good question. Let's see. High priority items. I do have my agenda with contacts, first of all. But let's see. I think one of those things would be, there's different stakeholders, different projects in the space that can do more work together. I think Spiral Vault. I haven't used it very much, but they implemented some coin join stuff, I believe, right?
Who did?
Spiral.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm not
they
familiar with it.
they implemented some coin join stuff, and whatever your take is on coin join or whatever, but um, I think what I don't like the idea of having a privacy wallet for one, right? And I think they are like, especially whilst we still transact on chain. I think they are. We're not doing a very good job at like informing people how their privacy could be eroded and those kind of
Mm,
things. So I would like us to tackle that privacy aspect of things, and you know, again, you don't want to end up in a situation where you get your salary, and then you go out to a club or something in the middle of the night. You pay the taxi, and now the taxi drops you home, and they see that you have like this huge UTXO that that you control, right?
right.
Like people are going to start, like, when more people start getting into Bitcoin, they are going to start getting a bit more sophisticated and understand these kind of things, right? So I think it's important for us to pay attention to that, with regards to mass adoption, because it would be a bit of a disservice to people, if we don't. And having the idea of having a like a wallet that's specifically doing privacy stuff, and one that doesn't, I don't like that, right?
Mm,
Like all wallets should be privacy wallets, or like take that into consideration. So I think, yeah, I think that's probably something that I would pay a lot of attention to. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, and it's something I feel like it's a bit of a black box for me. Like I'm still uh, not super sophisticated when it comes to privacy in all aspects. Like you realize you learn about Bitcoin privacy, and then you realize there's privacy in the traditional web, and you have a lot of considerations there that just get abstracted away. And so it's a very deep rabbit hole of like controlling your privacy. So I agree. I think better tools to illuminate that for people would be helpful. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Voltage. Voltage is the industry standard for Lightning Network infrastructure. Creating layer 2 applications and services on top of Bitcoin starts with Voltage, where you can spin up nodes, get access to liquidity, optimize your node, and much more. Voltage is leading the way as the next generation provider of Lightning Network infrastructure. And if you want to get a free trial and start using Voltage today, you can do so at voltage.cloud. Okay, let's get into Bolt.Fun. Bolt.Fun, this is a platform for Lightning builders. Can you explain the vision behind it and how it came to be?
Sure. Yeah. So within the Bitcoin design community, we have this concept that has kind of formed, which is like sub communities, right? And so, for example, Albi, the Lightning browser extension, they became kind of like a sub community within Bitcoin design, right? So they have like their own channel in Slack, and many other projects have their own channels and stuff like that. And there are people who come into the ecosystem, come into the community who want to contribute to those projects on the design side, and it's kind of like a lot of the discussions and stuff happen there, or just want to talk about it and whatnot. So when I was writing up the chapter on payments and stuff like that in the Bitcoin Design Guide, I was just starting to like dump a lot of my research into um, like this like GitHub thing, markdown files and stuff. But then I started realizing like a lot of people are coming into the community and they're primarily, the first project that they want to work on is a wallet. And I think we need a lot more wallets. Definitely, we need hundreds of thousands of wallets, right? That cater to all different use cases, from a merchant to a pupusa seller to a Pokemon Go. That Christoph Ono from the Bitcoin design community, he likes to talk about his Pokemon wallet, or we just need all different types of podcast wallet at this, all of these things, right? But they are like small parts of a wallet that haven't been kind of addressed, like subscriptions, like which wallet do subscription payments or batch payments, or all these like smaller patterns and stuff that could be quite useful, right? So I'm like, uh, I wanted to kind of like um, uh, encourage innovation in these smaller things. And when I started looking into it, I'm like, there's there's no small projects for people to start tackling. One, um, or at least they don't have the ideas of the small projects. They think it's like they have to start off with the big wallet project, because it's a huge undertaking designing a wallet. By the way, it's not like a weekend project. And yeah, so like to encourage a bit more innovation on like smaller things. But then I realized also we need to get more people into the industry, right? We need to attract more people in the industry so then they could tackle those smaller things as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I started dumping my work there. Our vendor from Galloy, he was also helping with some research at Pratt as well, and we were just like dumping all our stuff there. But it was like slightly more technical because I'm a bit more technically inclined, right? Like coding wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like my happy medium is like between design and development. So the stuff that I was dumping that out there was kind of like in between that as well. So like for application developers, pretty much, right?
Right.
So I think we had a concept of like, okay, how might we get like excite folks about like experimenting and stuff, and then we're like, we could do events, right? Hackathons and stuff. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so we started with Shock the Web. We did a couple of those. We like reference the guide, say like, hey, you could read about the Lightning Network and Bitcoin there. You could go to the Bitcoin Design Guide to focus more on the UI side of things, etc. And in Shock the Web, we also focused on like helping people build web apps on Lightning, because the majority of programmers in the world are web developers, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
how Ethereum and stuff like that took off their development community. So I'm like, there's a huge market there for people who have these web development skills. We can even designers. They might know some HTML or something like that. They use WordPress or whatever. So I'm like, okay, let's try to like tackle this and like figure out how to put on events. And then we realized it's like, okay, we wrote this guide, but we realized there's so many other things that we need to write, and we can't do it alone. So we're like, okay, let's build a blogging platform, right, for Bitcoin builders and makers and stuff like that. so that they could share their tutorials and stories and process and progress and stuff like that. So we try to encourage something called building in public and learning in public. And this is really important because even now, when you search on some topics about Bitcoin, you're finding like Bitcoin Talk or Reddit kind of like thing,
Hmm.
right? Forums, right? And but a lot of the chatter, like really cool chatter for builders and stuff, even for design, is happening inside of Slack, which is kind of ephemeral because the messages just get disappeared, right? It's also not structured and stuff. It's happening in Telegram. Those just disappear,
Right.
you know? So we're like, we need this content to be searchable because when people are coming into the space saying, hey, I want to be a blockchain developer or a blockchain designer, right? Because that's what they're thinking, right?
Right.
Right? They know Bitcoin, but it's like Bitcoin's slow and you can't really do it. It's not flexible and da da da, right? So we need to have content that could capture them because you search anywhere else for like building a music app or a podcast app for whatever like other network or whatever. It like you could find tons of them, right? But for Bitcoin, I think there's like one tutorial that I saw for like a music app, you know.
Mm.
But like, what about the different languages and stuff like that people want, or different types of music or whatever? So,
Right.
so that's where so that's how the platform started to build up more features, and then we wanted to also experiment with some of the tech. So the comments, for example, we're using Noster, right? Because we're like, okay, people coming into the space, they need to be able to find the content, but we should also try to like help them learn about all the different tools and stuff that are in the space, and why not just make it very practical where they're using the platform and they're learning about those tools, and like they're learning about Noster there, they're learning about LNURL auth because that's the only authentication that we use, you
Yeah.
know.
By signing in and all that.
Exactly. So they're like, okay, wow, you can do these things with Bitcoin, and it's cool and it's fun.
Yeah. Are there any parallels that you have in mind for this Bolt.Fun platform? Like when you look at the Web 2 world, I look at Bolt.Fun and I see a little bit of Medium, a little bit of Product Hunt, a little bit of indie hackers. Like what are the parallels that you see, and like where is this headed? What do you want this project to become?
I think the way it's headed, it's looking something like a incubator accelerator kind of thing.
Hmm.
Because like yeah, one, we try to help people learn about the tech, refine their ideas. Because we did hackathons before and they were kind of like, I think the longest one was a week and then 4 days, those projects just end up dying out, right? Which is really sad because like we see some cool stuff getting built and then like the attention is only during the hackathon. And
Mm.
and also the kind of people who are in the who end up doing well at these hackathons are people who are in the space already,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So that's not a good thing. Um, so um, so yeah, it's looking something like an accelerator, but just trying to help those projects that come out be sustainable. So big shout out to Folger Ventures for supporting. They're the one who's putting up the majority of prizes on there. It's crazy amount of prizes that we have in for this event. It's insane, actually.
Yeah. Let's jump into that. Actually, this is the Legends of Lightning event.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. Yeah, so the new format of these events is moving away from the hackathons, right? Which are kind of like these things where people just disappear, the teams don't stay formed and stuff like that. We're like, okay, let's stretch it out 9 weeks. Let's allow people to learn, have mentorship and stuff like that, have resources that they can lean on, have the opportunity to ask questions, share their stories, etc., share their ideas, recruit. All right. So like when you register for Legends of Lightning, you see like you register and then there's like a whole directory of other people and you can like reach out to them on Twitter or Discord. to be able to form teams and stuff with them. And that's also solving a problem that we had in our hackathons where, the people who had teams were people who already knew what they wanted, what was possible to do, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. And, yeah, so Fulgur, like approached us, Oleg, he's like, hey, there's a bunch of events that's happening, um, this fall. Um, how can we kind of like, connect them together? And
Hmm.
so we're like, yes.
And
And
so the
then,
hope then is to turn this into now an accelerator, and you can keep doing these cohorts every few months. You can add a new cohort and bring in new lightning builders to the space. Is that the idea?
well, we'll see. We'll see about that. It's the first time we're doing this format. We're gonna see how that kind of works out. But ideally, we are having this event every quarter of next year. That's the goal. Um, uh, we don't get paid really for it, so we're gonna have to figure out like a sustainable model and stuff. It's been self funded so far, but yeah, we're hoping that at least from the projects that are coming out of it, then they can either go towards they could do like office hours with Fulgur or Hivemind or Lightning Ventures and stuff, right? To be able to possibly get funding because we need these projects to. A time and effort and resources has been put into them already. So why not get them to continue and actually fulfill, like have bigger impact. The other part is like maybe it's an open source project, maybe it's a public good, maybe it's not looking for those kind of funding. So we're gonna have some presentations and stuff from Geyser.Fund, which actually they built Geyser grants at our first hackathon.
Oh, very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, right, which is kind of wild. But yeah, so not Guys Are Fun. Guys Are Fun exists already, but the grants portion of it, they
Yeah.
wrote the hackathon. And yeah, so like if you're a project or a team that's working on some open source or public good, then we can also connect you with Geyser or OpenSats to explain the process and perhaps even help you create a campaign or something that you could do crowdfunding.
Right. So now you've got a number of teams building, and I believe the Legends of Lightning tournament started a couple days ago. We're now recording on the 17th. I think it started on the 12th or the 13th. Have you seen? Do you have any visibility into like what projects people are trying to build so far? Has anyone come out with anything interesting? Any surprises or any new Lightning use cases that you've seen to date?
I read one today. I'm still trying to like parse through it or whatever. It was a contracts application or Lightning contracts app. So they want to kind of like, I guess, from my understanding of it, if you have a contract, you like, let's say for a web design project that has like certain deliverables and stuff, then they're gonna do something to like have those payments staggered and stuff, like do an interface. And on top of that, there's storage for sats. This is kind of interesting to be able to upload images and stuff and pay sats for it, storing files. There's one called Agreement, and so another really cool thing. So I'm in Bulgaria now, right, Sofia, and someone from the Bolt.Fun community reached out to me and said, "Hey, I noticed that you're in Bulgaria. Is it possible that we could meet up?" I'm like, "Cool, sure." And then he like telling me about his project and stuff like that, and it was like, you know, for me, it was like a really nice moment because I'm just like pushing pixels and writing code and doing meetings and stuff like that. So it's it doesn't feel it's digital. You know what I mean? It's digital,
Yeah.
and that was like really special. I met someone else in Riga who said that after the hackathon, he worked on some LN Bit stuff. He kind of got like really motivated to. So he won like second place. He kind of got motivated to like come into the space and like work full time.
Hmm.
And
That's
that
very
was
cool.
also, yeah, that was also like oh wow, there's like actually, it's not just talking heads. You know, it's like it's there's people in meat space.
Yeah.
um, and so we're also having a bunch of other meat space events happening. For example, in Pleb Lab, they
Yep.
have mentorship and stuff like that. They kicked off a couple weekends ago with Pleb Weekend. Um, I think they're going to be giving some discounts or some space available there. There's Pleb TLV in Israel. Um, there's yeah, there's like a bunch of there's some stuff in Miami popping off as well.
Hmm.
So like, and people are kind of like doing their own legends of events as well. And I want to make it clear, we're not trying to like centralize these events or anything like that. What we're trying to do is in this period of time, we're just trying to coordinate the community to have
Hmm.
high impact on innovation. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no agenda there. Fulga's giving out the prize money. We also are working with the Afro Bitcoin conference. They were going to have a hackathon as well. We're like, why divide people's attention? Let's just put that as a track. So they put up 10K for the Building for Africa track. Um, and yeah, it's just a time for the community to come together to like innovate. And you also don't need to be like a technical person, right? So
Hmm.
something that I'm trying to help people understand is like at these hackathons and stuff, they tend to be very coding heavy and thing. But there's a bunch of like most of these Bitcoin community initiatives, like Bitcoin Beach, Cassie, the Bitcoin Mountain. Um, there's one Bitcoin Lake. Not all of them are like started with a technical person, you know.
Hmm.
So the goal that we're trying to push is innovation and Bitcoin adoption globally or in Africa or wherever, right? As per the tracks.
Right.
And adoption can mean setting up like kickstarting a community, a local community, a local circular economy about Bitcoin, printing some flyers, talking to
Right.
people, you know?
Yeah. So you're looking for builders across the board, not just
Exactly.
programmers.
Exactly. Yeah, because we need all types of people to be able to for Bitcoin to take over, right?
Yeah.
We need people for marketing, design, whatever else.
What's your sentiment on the health of the Bitcoin builder community? If we call this like global community of people building things, uh, what do we need more of? Where are the new people coming from? Do we have enough new people? Are these developers that were otherwise looking at different blockchains? Are they from Web 2? I just want your overall view on the health of the Bitcoin builder ecosystem.
Yeah, I think I think we're in a transition phase now, especially with the Lightning Network. It's like people are calling it that Cambrian explosion, right? A lot of people like past couple years, they're like, things are really taking off, and the speed of innovation is happening so fast.
Hmm.
Um, so where are they going to come from? They need to come from everywhere. And there's this concept of like something with Stephen Delorme. He told me, you guys are trying to target the at-risk developers. Developers who are super interested in, or it could be developers, designers, whoever, right? But at-risk folks, makers, builders, who they want to work on something innovative, right? They heard this new industry, blockchain, is kicking up. Um, they have this perception that Bitcoin is like not going to offer them whatever, or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't even know, right? But with the marketing budget of Solana or or Ethereum or something like that, it's going to attract them definitely. Oh, look, cool design, cool toys, tutorials, resources. Oh, let's go over there because it's easy. It's easy to get started on those platforms, right?
Right.
So one, we have to target those people who are probably at risk of spending 2 3 years learning about these technologies, understanding like wrong principles, building on wrong foundations, right? Um, and then say like, yeah, they're gonna come back to Bitcoin, right? Yeah, probably so. But now they have to like start as a junior again. You know,
Right.
why do that? Let's just get them now, and we need to make it like very interesting. Then we have so I think this is gonna be this is probably not going to be good for my image or whatever, but screw it. But I think I'm going to have to start going to like uh, Web3 and crypto conferences, right?
To
Um,
attract these developers
yeah,
and
exactly.
builders.
Yeah, because when like when the network's down for Solana or this or that or validators, it's hilarious. The validators getting restarted on Discord. It's like what? Um, but say like, hey, you know what never goes down, you know. And I think there are people who are kind of like taking notice that things are happening in the Bitcoin, like exciting, fun things are happening in the Bitcoin space, especially on the application layer, and they're
Hmm.
starting to slowly come through. But we need to capture as many people from all walks of life, all whatever, and show them Bitcoin. And I think what's going to get really interesting as well is that with this whole Tyro thing and RGB and tokens and stuff like that, I find it kind of funny that people are talking about like, they call them assets, right? I'm like, no, you're doing tokens.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
token. How are we going to deal with this as a community and keep the philosophy? Because shitcoins are coming, basically,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. And
So
when you think about, is this a, you point to two different sides here. One is like, it could lead to more developers, it could lead to more builders, could lead to more excitement. And the other side is it could lead to more shitcoins. What are your thoughts on the pros and cons outweighing each other? What is this development of assets on Bitcoin going to do to the Bitcoin builder community? Is it a
tokens
net
on
good or a net bad?
tokens on Bitcoin. Don't twist it. We have to face the reality like straight on. That is what's happening, and it's an inevitability, right? It like I saw NIDIG is I found it quite interesting. So they started an accelerator, and they say Bitcoin, Lightning, and Taro. I'm like, oh, that's interesting that they're making such a focus on this, right?
Mm,
Um, I mean, I know like it's going to be an easy sell saying like you go to the Web3 folks and stuff. He's like, hey, Bitcoin has tokens now, right? They're gonna come in,
right.
and don't get me wrong. There's like some super talented people um, who are like great designers, great developers, and stuff like that. Building really cool interfaces and products and stuff like this, just on wrong infrastructure. Listen, for me, I am a bit agnostic. I'm like, hey, the only interest I have is for Bitcoin to be that single chain, that single thing, and whatever you want to do, it's up to you, but just build it on Bitcoin, right?
Mm,
I can't. Yeah, I'm not going to be the one who tries to censor or whatever. I do have my own philosophies on like the kinds of things that I would like to see and stuff like that. But I mean, I can't control what people do or build. We as a community, we just have to be, help them understand some of the principles and philosophies that we like those new people coming in and stuff, to understand the philosophies and the principles that we value so much in the space, so that hopefully, it doesn't go that route in which you see a bunch of people getting wrecked. But um,
what are some of the use cases you want to see? You mentioned you have your own philosophies and ideas, and what do you think is missing right now in the Bitcoin community?
well, I mean, with regards to that statement, it's more along the lines of like I wanna be able to like I primarily wanna like just transact with Bitcoin and have that store of value kind of thing. I don't necessarily want all these tokens and stuff, but yeah, so that's what I kind of meant. I don't want to have like a bunch of because I travel a lot, so I have like a
Right.
bunch of different currencies. I don't want to have that again.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, I'm cool with Bitcoin only. Let's go. Um, but the kind of stuff that I would like to see, or like the things that are coming up. Let me actually pull this up. There's a few other projects that I saw. Yeah, there's some like oh, this was a cool one. Like Ellen Cow. Do you know about it? I think you're
Ellen
using it,
Cal,
right?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've used it before.
yeah. That's just a very obvious like brilliant idea, I think. And I just want to see more stuff like that. More like utilities. I want to see like some stuff being built for like local ecosystems and stuff like like something that's like very local that might only have like a few thousand people or whatever using it, but it really solves a problem for them. So I want people to start solving their problems, their local problems with Bitcoin, ultimately.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's the kind of things I want to see.
Yeah, I think Ellen Cal is really cool. And I think this is one of those apps that could get a lot of adoption outside of the hardcore Bitcoin group. Is that because it's monetizing your time, it's like a different angle on monetizing your time than Vita is. Vita is
Hmm.
more messages and live streams and calls and things like that. LN Cal seems to be taking the approach of booking your time and having like time slots. So if you're a consultant and your hourly rate is $100 an hour or $500 an hour, whatever it is, a lawyer, if you run a hair salon, if you whatever you do, if you have a time, you can now monetize that natively right in the app that people use to book their slot, right? It's
Hmm.
like you don't need Google Calendar and the additional payment. You don't need to add in all these different layers. It's just one app, book and pay, settled instantly. Some pretty incredible stuff. I'm definitely excited about that one.
How about uh, uh, booking by the minute,
Yeah, you can stream it, and all
right?
of a sudden, like, there's a lot of streaming use cases too that I think are
Right?
relatively underexplored. Um,
Exactly.
and yeah, I'm excited to see what people build there. Um,
Yep.
do you think that Bitcoin builders are, you know, efficiently allocating their resources to the projects that matter today, or is there do you see like a misallocation of resources anywhere in the ecosystem that you wish people would be you could guide people towards building certain use cases over others? You mentioned Taro being one, but are there any other places where you think you wish you could kind of just like nudge people towards here's some interesting stuff that needs to be built and no one's doing it yet?
I was thinking, well, I have mentioned a few of them, but I was thinking about that very question recently. I saw there was some maker, can't remember who it was, but they were working on some stuff. I'm like, it would be really cool if this person like created this kind of use case. I would love to see what they did, right? But they were actually working on something very technical that's probably going to have like developers using it instead of like a consumer use case, right? And I thought about it, and I'm like, that's probably a better place for them to be anyway, because they have this knowledge about like the hardcore technical parts of it, and their work is going to make it easier for other people. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so maybe how we should look at it again is more people in the space. Let's get more people in the space. We don't need to reallocate anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just need more people. You
Right.
know,
That's a
companies
good way
are,
of looking at it.
yeah,
You know,
companies are having a hard time hiring.
right.
So
And maybe this is a good lead into the last topic I want to discuss, which is grants and specifically like open source grants. And I know you've been a recipient of the grant with Bitcoin Design Guide and with OKCoin. Can you talk to me about the health of that ecosystem and how we get companies to fund these grants and get people excited about building open source software?
Yeah, big shout out to Connor from Spiral, Moneyball, Steve Lee, Jason from OKCoin, and Stefan for the recent grant that I got. That's being like all going towards the Bolt.Fun ecosystem to try to develop that and get more people into the space. The grant with Spiral that I was doing, research on the payments, privacy, and contributing to the Bitcoin design guide and stuff. It helped me for a year and a half focus on something that I've wanted to do for such a long time and contribute there. Um, you know, I was like with my design agency. I have been doing like R&D kind of projects internally, using my own money and stuff. I have a tendency to do that quite a bit, but um, you know, it's always something kind of like on the side, right? Being able to have no strings attached, like the OK Coin one, like the Spiral one, no strings attached, just getting to focus down on like a specific topic and go really deep into it and not have to worry about like having to pick up a client or something like that. It is such a fortunate position to be in, and like I'm super thankful for having that opportunity. Um, and I know that there are not that many companies and organizations giving out grants and stuff. There is not as much capital um, for even VCs and open source as other industries. Um, so I don't necessarily know how we increase that amount of capital and stuff. Maybe it's through use cases, and having that kind of like unicorn Bitcoin startup. Are there any unicorn Bitcoin startups actually?
I think there's, well, definitely Bitcoin companies, like a lot of the exchanges, the big exchanges, of course, Coinbase was one of the early ones to,
No.
$50 billion valuation at some point, I think. But if we're talking about like purely Bitcoin or even Lightning, I think someone like Strike would be pretty close. I
Okay.
think they raised 80 or 90 million just recently. If they sold 10% of the company, that's almost unicorn territory.
Mm.
I imagine Lightning Labs is probably pretty close as well. I think they raised 75 million a while ago.
Yeah. Zebedee recently raised how much was
They
that?
raised
Like
35 recently. Yeah,
35
so
recently?
that puts them probably in 300, 400, 500 million territory.
Yeah. And
Um,
Blockstream raised 200. Well, somebody recently raised 200.
oh, interesting. I didn't know about the Blockstream one.
No.
Um, yeah, so it seems like there's a number of companies that are on the cusp of that unicorn status.
Hmm.
Um, but I wonder, like, with specifically with grants, like I came into the Bitcoin ecosystem and I first heard about grants, the idea of grants through Bitcoin. Like I didn't even know what a grant was prior to entering the Bitcoin space. And I wonder, do you think that's the right funding model for a lot of these projects?
Is it the right funding model? I think we just need a diversity of funding models. And the reason why I brought up the unicorn question and stuff is like that is because, again, it's probably going to go in same in line with my answer about like the allocation of people
Mm,
and their time. It's we just need more money. We need more money
right.
into the space. I know there's like a few projects that I know that have been trying to like raise some money and stuff. And it's been difficult. Even for us, it's been kind of difficult because we don't have a business model.
Right.
We have no business model. So we kind of have to rely on things like grants or whatever, or I'm going to have to go back to my day job, doing design consulting. Um, so, I mean, a grant allows you to focus in for a period of time. Of course, it's like there's risks. Perhaps, something doesn't get delivered, or whatever, the person who receives it doesn't do what they said, or whatever. Um, a life can happen, but I think it's a good model, and it is very helpful. I know BTC Pay Server is mainly, they have a great community, but The people there are putting in a lot of time building some fantastic software, and that's grant based stuff. There's also bounties, right? So if there are some people that grants don't necessarily work for, also, right? Because if you don't want to do such a big commitment, right,
Hmm.
then maybe a bounty works for you.
Right.
You know, you know, yeah. So yeah, you could do bounties. There's grants. Um, what other mechanisms are there? I think.
Well, then there's like the VC approach, and there's like
Mm,
building a business model, and like there's probably a handful of different approaches someone could take. I guess if you were to give a piece of advice for someone who wants to build, is curious and interested in Bitcoin, and is listening to this show saying, I want to contribute, how do they approach the task of getting a grant or finding bounties? What are your kind of like learnings having gone through that process yourself?
um, I think you need to put like do the proof of work effectively. Like before I got my grant with Square, I was already working on these things, you know. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's it's all proof of work. We're on the only true decentralized proof of work chain. So it's all about proof of work here. Um,
Right.
and if you do your proof of work, you integrate with the communities, you start contributing and stuff like that. You show that you're committed, then your likelihood of getting a grant is higher, right? If you just show up and say like, "Hey, I want a grant. Um, I haven't done anything yet," um, then you're most likely not gonna get it, right?
Hmm.
But if you show that you're committed to the community and with like with a project or whatever it is that you're doing, that you're committed to it, that you're in for the long run, then you could do a proposal and and get through that way. For things like bounties, there's several projects like Albi, Get Albi, .com. There's Breeze.technology. There's Wasabi. Um, who else? Ellen Bits. I think all of them do like have bounty programs. Blue Wallet as well has some bounty programs. So basically, check up any of those like wallets. They might have some bounty programs in which you can like take some work. I know Wasabi some years ago they did like a design like yeah some artwork competition and stuff. So this was kind of cool. And also I'm gonna show Legends of Lightning. So
There you go.
yeah, so Legends of Lightning, if you want to show off your proof of work, right? If you want to like link up with some other people to learn from them, it's always fun to learn with other people, to build with other people. Great products, great projects get built by teams, not by just a single individual. I guess, well, even Bitcoin, right? It might have been sparked by one person, but it wouldn't exist like it is today without a community, right?
Right.
Um, and people working together, fixing things and whatnot. So yeah, makers.bolt.fun. And what we are trying to do, we have this like global hackathon in which you can kind of like show off, like sorry, you could link up with like other people in the community to build something. And there's like about 3 Bitcoin in prizes. The top prize is 1 Bitcoin, which again,
Nice.
I, I I'm like, can we participate? I was like, really, I was asking if I could participate. But there's 1 Bitcoin as the grand prize. There's 2 runners up, which get 0.5 each, and then for the 2 tracks, you can there's like 5,000, 5, and one something for
Hmm.
second and third. And then there's a design award that you can also get. So you could be stacking a lot of sats
Right.
for, well, you could be stacking Bitcoin, essentially. You could literally stack Bitcoin there. And that could be like a good few months or year funding for your project or whatever. And along the way, you get to like learn about the tech. You get to learn about um, how to build. You get to meet other people. We're having like actually right now there's a talk on Taro, introducing Taro from Lightning Labs. That's being presented. There's a whole series tokens on Lightning. We have also community banking and setting up your circular economy. Voltage just announced that they're doing some events as well and providing some resources there. So yeah, I think it's a good way to get into the industry, especially if you are interested. You've been on the sidelines, kind of watching, and also we have this Bitcoin Designathon, right? Which is like a design kind of like let's call it like a program competition kind of thing that's happening within the Bitcoin design community that's connected to the Legends of Lightning tournament. So you can start off this like 7 days still, or maybe by the time this goes out, it will only be a few days. But basically, you're able to just focus on the design part in the initial part of the Legends of Lightning tournament through the designathon, and then you transition that design into like something functional.
Right.
You know.
Very cool. I want to finish this off with a segment I do at the end of every show called the lightning round.
Okay,
Are you ready?
let's go.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Stackwork. Stackwork is a lightning powered platform that generates high quality transcripts from all of your audio or video content. They combine AI engines and hundreds of human workers all over the world who are paid over the Lightning Network to assemble these transcripts. And that's what lets Stackwork create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts than anyone else. I've used Stackwork to transcribe all of my episodes on my personal website. You can check that out. I just get the Stackwork file, copy, paste, and go. No additional editing required. If you want to learn more about Stackwork, you can visit stackwork.com. That is STAK work.com. I'm going to put you on the spot here with this one. What is the best designed app in the Bitcoin ecosystem today?
I like Pine.
You like what?
Pine.
How do you spell it?
Pine.
I don't think I've heard of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
What is it?
It's a Lightning wallet. It has some contact-based stuff. It's a bit old. I think it's still doing like on-chain related things, but I just love the design patterns and stuff that they've introduced in it. It's a mobile wallet.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Are there any books that have meaningfully changed your view of the world?
Books that have changed my view of the world. I don't read too much books. I'm not gonna lie. I'm more of like deep into like research papers, but
Or any research papers? Those count too.
oh, okay. Anonymity enjoys company.
What's that?
Anonymity and yeah, anonymity enjoys company. I think that's what it's called. It's a paper. Nothing was sent to me a couple of years ago, and it like really helped form my idea about like privacy and stuff like this.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
If you could only hold one asset for the next decade and it could not be Bitcoin, what would you hold?
Oh, damn.
You thought that was going to be an easy question.
Yeah.
I saw you were ready to say Bitcoin.
Damn you, Kevin. Oh, I think just like I guess property, land, real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm quite interested these days to get like some Bolt.Fun hub spaces and stuff set up. So yeah.
Very cool. And then finally, if you can give a shout out to one builder in the Bitcoin Lightning space, someone you admire, someone you think's doing great work, you get to choose. Who do you want to shout out?
I'm gonna give a shout out to Ed Pratt. he's making all of this happen with Bolt.Fun, doing all the operations and stuff, and I couldn't do it without him. So yeah, he's the designer. He's also taking up some roles on operations and product management and stuff like that. So yeah, I have to give him a shout out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time. I really enjoyed the conversation. Where can listeners go to learn more about Bolt.Fun and Legends of Lightning?
Makers.bolt.fun. That's it. And we say there, we want to do things together and we want to make it fun because fun means it's accessible, fun means it's enjoyable, fun means it's friendly, and fun is also mandatory because it's in the name.
Love it. Thanks again for the time, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Take care. Thanks so much for having me.
In the last 7 days, you guys sent in 6,305 sats. That came in from 28 different supporters. We'll run through the top 5 real quick. Pablo F7Z sent in 2,250 sats. StemR42 sent in 903. Lunatic Coin sent in 300. Bitcoin Base sent in 265. And an anonymous user at Castomatic sent in 258. We had a bunch of comments as well. Let's run through those. First is V4V and a heart emoji on Adam Curry's episode 23. We have Rad Vladdy, who sent in 123 sats and wanted to explore all the different ideas that James Andrew talked about. It's a very long comment. I'm going to summarize. Talking about frame compute, prepaid gift cards using Synonym and Hole Punch. There's a lot in there. If you want to check out the full comment, you can click on the episode in Fountain and you'll be able to see the boost. JDAKK says, love the podcast. Keep going. Agree with the Lightning community is amazing. Thank you. That means a lot. And I will definitely keep the episodes coming. I've got 3 or 4 coming out in pretty fast sequence coming up here. Peanut Butter Life says, love this show. Pacific Northwest sends a heart emoji. South Korea LN says, Google login, come on. Even as someone who seems to like to dabble with shitcoins, you can do better than that. Interesting episode though, thanks. By the way, if you're into tarot, have a look at RGB2. Probably way ahead in terms of development, in terms of the whole client-side validation idea both are targeting. I will definitely look at RGB. Thank you for the comment, South Korea LN. I haven't had anyone from RGB on, and frankly, I need to know more about how it works to make any educated comments on it. Sam Sethi says, loving this show, Kevin. And an anonymous user says, nice one. All on episode 73 with James Andrew. I can't wait to see what you guys send in this week and keep an eye out for some more episodes coming up soon.